Hello everybody, San here, engineer, MBA, and investor. And in today's video, I want to take a look at CRISPR being mentioned on the Joe Rogan podcast. This was an episode with the scientist Andrew Huberman. I don't know if people know a little bit about Andrew here, but this guy is all over different podcast episodes, from Tim Ferriss, to Lex, all over the podcast world for good reasons, right? He is a scientist, Andrew Huberman, a well-spoken. He has his own podcast episode that he publishes like every month, I think, and he goes like really in depth with whatever topic he's trying to study. So, like I said, he is a scientist, and when it comes to brain and energy and maximization of productivity, efficiency, all those topics of what you would say sort of encapsulate within the biology of human beings. He's obviously well informed, but in this case here, yesterday I was watching YouTube there on my sofa last night, and I was going through, this episode came about, and I don't really listen to that many Joe Rogan these days, but this episode came about it, and I saw the title say CRISPR gene manipulation. Interesting. So let's play it out and let's see what we can get from here.
There too, we hear about gain of function research, and now everyone associates gain of function with gain of function of this particular virus. But gain of function research happens all the time in essentially every laboratory in the US and abroad that does mouse genetics. You knock out a gene and you ask what happens to this animal in the absence of a gene, and then you knock it in and you see if it replaces that. Because in humans, human genetics is only loss of function. You don't have the option yet, CRISPR will allow this, to put things back in that are missing. And so gain of function research is extremely common. I mean, we do it in we're no longer working on animals, to be clear, we only do humans.
So basically, flat out said CRISPR, and he's obviously describing genome editing. At least one form of genome editing is CRISPR. And let's play out what happens after this episode, just for the sake of staying consistent with this clip here. There's something here I want to show you guys.
That's right. Yeah, he mutated the HIV receptor, which everyone thinks, okay, that was designed to prevent these babies from getting HIV. It turns out that that mutation is thought to perhaps enhance memory by sort of parallel mechanisms. And then it was very unclear for a short while whether or not this guy was either going to get a Nobel Prize or whether or not they were going to throw him in jail. And so everyone is very tense and waiting in my community, thinking, okay, because when somebody's kind of up for a big discovery like this, everyone kind of circles maybe wanting that maybe they should be involved in getting the accolades. But as the moment that the international community, I think rightfully so, said, this is horrible, you can't do this, there's no ethics committee, you need to think about what you're doing, everyone was like, I had nothing to do with this guy, never had anything. And there was a deep excavation of emails and all sorts of, everyone was like, I got nothing to do with this guy. So it was pretty interesting. Then China said, oh, we're gonna punish him. But I'd be willing to bet both hands that his punishment consists of a jail cell that is pretty luxurious with a laboratory. There's no question that CRISPR is going on there. CRISPR is going on in certain regions of, other locations on the globe.
So, guys, this is pretty straightforward. Huberman is obviously talking about CRISPR here. He's obviously at the second clip I showed you. Part of this video is actually obviously with what happened in China with the scientist who was trying to basically attempt CRISPR on two human beings who had HIV, two babies basically, and this was back in 2018, and obviously it was a world scandal because CRISPR as a whole sort of got tainted because now people started realizing that you could commit CRISPR on anybody, right, without any sort of overseeing any sort of scientific process, right? So that's why this person was thrown to jail, and I'm putting jail in quotation here because obviously, as Huberman said, probably was more a luxury house with like a lab where he was conducting his CRISPR experiments because, like he said, other countries are wanting to explore this technology. So I've said it many times, guys, in this channel, CRISPR is here to stay. CRISPR is one of those technologies that you don't want to miss out on. I mean, there have been waves of technologies over the past centuries, right? Just to name out a few, and obviously there are different ways of looking at this, but you look at the ancient history of human being, fire would probably be the best technology because, before having fire, you couldn't really eat meat. You had to chew on raw meat for like an hour, right? And fire basically made it where you can chew it within a minute, right? So that obviously was a huge time saver. And notice my point, time saver. I mean, other technologies came about. I mean, obviously weapons and so on. But then, in the 16th century, 15th century, the printer press, right? The printer press, where for the first time ever, you could literally print a book into multiple books, right? So you create one book, you multiply that by 1,000, you distribute that 1,000 instead of having that single book or having to physically transcribe that book into 1,000 books. I mean, just think of it, the time saver there, just that technology alone, right? And then, other things came about. I mean, electricity. I mean, just think about a home without electricity today. That's how people were living up until just a few, like 2-3 centuries ago. I would say 2 centuries ago. That's when people were still using fire and candles and so on to light their homes. Or forget about homes, just like, businesses. You basically would have to shut down after a certain hour because it would get too dark, right? And then talk about other technologies like that, I mean, I can go down the list here, but obviously fast forwarding down to where we are in the last few decades, the internet was pretty big. I mean, the internet came about between universities who were trying to sort of communicate with each others in the US. And then you have this technology that basically is unleashed to where now you have a whole economy on it. The people's lives have changed. Look at smartphones. Look at how people are living today. And that took like 30 years to get there. Smartphones became popular in 2010. Computers were really, really a main household product by the early 2000s. So what is that? And the internet came about like what, late 70s, early 80s. So you're looking at 20 to 30 years before the whole maturation of the technology. And obviously today that's still maturing, right? There's new companies going public. There's new companies being created on top of the internet, on top of that technology, of that platform, whether that's the internet, the computer world, and so on, right? Or smartphones. And then, I want to fast forward this to CRISPR, right? CRISPR came about, 2012 with a paper of Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier. And then 2013, Dr. Zhang, obviously still holds, won that patent recently, saying that he was the first person to ever conduct, or rather the first lab to ever conduct CRISPR on eukaryotic cell, which is obviously a human cell, for the first time ever in 2013, which Dr. Doudna and her team were rushing to get that paper out. Just unfortunately, Dr. Zhang got it first, and that's gonna take time, right? And look, this is basically 10 years later, and now this technology is being mentioned in the most popular podcast in the recent years, right? Joe Rogan has been the most popular podcast, I would say, in the last 4 years. I think before that was probably Tim Ferriss. But Tim Ferriss also mentioned a bunch of times CRISPR. But it's really nice to see Joe Rogan being, on the episode talking about CRISPR as it is. You can see Huberman being a man of science, sort of understands the dynamics of what is the potential of CRISPR. Later in this episode, he talks about Huntington disease. With CRISPR, you can sort of, cure that potentially, right? So, where a disease that is inherited, right, for the first time ever, you can actually treat that, right? And Huntington disease affects your motor aspects, right? So can't move your arm, can't grab something. These things degenerates over time, right? So it's not like you're at 5-10 years you're gonna get that for the rest of your life. This gets degenerated, so that, like at 30, 40, 50 years old, gets so bad that, you can't even function as a human being. But what does CRISPR do? It allows you to live longer and healthier. Again, back to the initial point I was making with these other technologies, it's about time saving. That's all it's about. Technology should always. Time is such a powerful aspect in this life, right? Whatever technology you have, the way you value that technology is how can it save more time for human being, be more time efficient. That's how you value it. So going back to our technology, the printing press, fire, the printing press, electricity, any of those technologies, the car, the vehicle, that changes everything, right? So Guys, I'll end this video like this. As always, subscribe if you're not. Like this video, fan value. I want to apologize for not making videos recently. Been really busy, guys, this week and the last few weeks, really. But I'm trying to, stay consistent with videos. So let's see what happens across the week here. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know in the comments, guys. What do you guys think about this video? I'll see you guys in the next video.